To think when I went to college, public speaking was my least favorite thing.
It is, dude. It's the worst.
Now,
And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. What's going on, Print Fam? I'm here. My guest is here. We're ready to get it rocking. Let me just do a few things. Hey, guys, you guys know the routine. Because of last time, we're going to do a little sound check for you live. And let me know in the chat if everything is good. So I'm going to hit you with the testing, and then Drew's going to hit you with the testing, and then we'll officially start. So, testing, 1, 2, 3. Drew, hit me.
testing, 1, 2, 3.
All right, guys, let us know in the chat how those levels are. In the meantime, we're going to go ahead and just roll that intro. And it doesn't work. Does it ever work? There we go. Ooh, Monument Limited presents the Print Life live. And where are we here? What's going on, Print Fam? It's your boy Cam. Welcome back to another episode of the Print Life Live video podcast. If you guys were on the last show, you know that we've started a new segment which is called hashtag Print Myth Bust. So if you have any questions that you're kind of shaky on, you're not really sure if it's fact or fiction, now is the opportunity to bust that myth. To get the myth busted, you need to type at the Print Life, followed by hashtag Print Myth Bust, followed by your question. If you do those things, we're going to do our best to let my guest get in there and bust them myths. This is a good segment, man. It has huge potential. I can see this going in a lot of great different ways. So anyway, today's guest has been in the industry for 10 plus years, starting actually probably way more than that. I didn't even confirm with him. It might be goddamn 20. I don't know. I didn't confirm, but he'll confirm in a minute. He started in small mom and pop shops, moving his way up into the contract world before finally landing at Anatol as a installer for automatic presses. I'm assuming he probably does some manual stuff, used stuff, new stuff, all kinds of stuff. He's an installer. He's a tech. And from my experience, when it comes to questions in regards to automation, especially moving into it for your first time, there's no one else you should talk to. Fuck a salesman, fuck a rep, fuck this. You just want to talk to the techs. They got all the answers for you. So, without further ado, let's welcome Drew. Ah, shit, I should have asked him how to say his last name, dude. Konstantaras?
Yeah.
Did I get it right?
Yeah, you're good.
All right. Thank you, Drew, for being here, my friend. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
You are so welcome, dude. I feel like, hang on, guys, I'm having some issues here with technical difficulties. So I feel like when we first bring somebody on, like yourself, most people just kind of want to know your history. You don't have to dive into it too deeply, but it's important for them to understand kind of what your qualifications are.
Sure.
You had mentioned that you actually started out in mom and pop shops.
Originally, yeah, when I was first starting out, I was teaching gymnastics actually, just part-time. And somebody approached me about printing custom cheerleading bows.
Can you do a backflip?
I can. I'm not gonna.
You son of a bitch. You can do a backflip, dude.
I can.
Can we talk about life goals? That's one of mine.
I could probably teach you that too.
Dude, I'm in, man. So, all right, so go ahead. Yeah.
So yeah, I did the mom and pop shop originally. I mean, most of it was printing bows, but we did schools on the side. We did all kinds of little stuff.
Uh-huh.
But a lot of those bows, they're actually polyester, so it was easier for them to sublimate. You get a little bit more precise, all that. It's heat pressing, a little less actual labor.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got good at making jigs and lining up those ribbons, and then they'd form them after they were printed. We put custom logos on there.
Were you printing them manually at that time?
No.
Oh,
Our
okay.
shop had only an auto. I jumped right in with 2 feet. I had 6 hours of training with the guy who was running it before me.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, we need more work. We're going somewhere else. I'm like, well, I'll take a little bit of work. Anything's better than nothing.
Yeah.
So he taught me in 6 hours, and then I was running it by myself.
That's amazing.
Not to say I was running it efficiently right away.
Yeah, mom
I'll
and
give
pop
you that.
shops, they do teach you how to be kind of like creative, and your ingenuity goes up, right, in those kind of environments.
Sure. I mean, I had nobody teach me anything. I had to figure it out a lot. I did watch some of the videos that were out then, cat spit, stuff like that.
Was he? Yeah. Am I correct? Have you about 10 years, or are you close? Are you
Really
longer than
close, right around 9.
that? 9 years? Okay.
And then I had some graphic design background in college, a lot of art background in college, stuff like that.
Is that why you chose to to get into the print industry? Because it was like the
It
first
just
gig in
fell
design?
into my lap.
Yeah. Same here, dude. I mean, it's a little more complicated than that, but yeah, dude, you're just trying to get work, right? And that's where it
Correct.
happens.
It all started with that,
All
but
right.
I mean, it helps to have that passion for art because it's really an art form. It's a science all combined into one.
It is.
It perfection takes a lot of it. If you're really perfectionist at making sure it looks right, seeing that it's right every time, and trying to replicate that over and over again.
Right.
No T-shirt will ever be the same.
It's
Not a
true.
single one.
It's true.
But the goal is to make it as close as possible.
Yeah, right. So how long did you spend at the mom and pop shop?
About 2 years there.
And then what happened?
They went ahead and moved to sublimation. They were selling everything. They offered it to me. I didn't have the money at the time.
No.
They sold it off. It was online. Guy got a deal on the whole shop and went ahead, and I went over and helped him move the equipment. We moved it from one location to the other, cleaned out the whole shop. He had never printed before, so he said, well, I got a screen printing shop. What do I do with it now? You want to come work for me? So we moved on to that. Again, that started really small,
Yeah.
but he was a huge embroidery shop.
Okay.
So he was doing thousands and thousands and thousands of pieces of embroidery. All these heads running constantly, but wanted to bring the screen printing in-house. So what we started was taking on smaller orders. I'd do it more like the mom and pop shop, and slowly he'd say, all right, well, how about you teach somebody to run this machine? Okay, you just got to register it, let them pull T-shirts on and off. Okay, next, teach somebody how to coat screens. Teach somebody how to burn them. Teach them all that. By the time we were done, I was running the manual.
Really?
They had taken me off all the other stuff.
Yeah.
When you have free time, just print on this manual and help everyone else. Okay.
Nice, dude.
Organizing the people, and right before I left, we ended up getting the second auto. So I could teach somebody to do that.
Wow. Did you
Everything
have a
went
hand
out.
in the installation of the autos, or how did? Because I mean, it kind of leads
I moved
into.
that machine myself. We had Anatol come look it over because it was an older Anatol machine, but we took it apart. It was built to go through a small door.
Yeah.
We took it all apart. I had some riggers help me. We moved it across the state, well, one side of Chicago to the other.
Damn.
Um,
Bro, you got
got
history
it.
with Anatol.
yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that so? It did, and then that led into you to because that's the next step, right? You leave that place, and is that the last place in printing?
Well, once you start teaching everybody everything, there's less work for you to do. So I found myself, oh, don't worry about coming in this week. Don't worry about coming in that week. And I just come clean up the messes.
Yeah.
Or when we got really busy, stuff like that.
Hey.
Organizing the schedule for the week and get out.
Hey, good job, bro. You ran yourself right out of business. I wonder
Yes.
often if I do that with this goddamn channel. I don't know. But hopefully not, man.
Yeah, so I just started calling around other print shops looking for other opportunities. And eventually I called Anatol and, hey, you guys hiring now? Oh, well, I'm an experienced screen printer. Let me know. They said, what? Can you come in?
Nice.
All right.
But you got hired on to like start figuring out how to be an installer, or you were more
Yes.
equipment
No,
oriented
at the
that point?
time, we didn't have much going on for installers, stuff like that. It's kind of where some of our problems ran in the past.
Okay.
So I went in training, but I had all that experience. So literally I spent like a couple weeks at the facility going over stuff. And they're like, all right, you're good. Go.
Yeah.
Call us when you have a problem. All right.
Interesting. Well, it's funny that you actually brought that up. I had that stuff in here later, but I think maybe now is actually a better time. Let me get through my list here. Let me find the goddamn questions. I just mainly just so I can write them off. Well, because I have been kind of an Anatol fanboy from the beginning, because when I was shopping manual presses, I saw the Thunder and I was comparing it to everything else, and I was like, well, dude, it just seems like it ticks all the boxes that I wanted.
Sure.
So I've been a fanboy for a while, but Anatol had an interesting some shit came up with them around '08, right? Like when the economy took a dump.
Sure.
You guys made it
through. It was a whole bunch of stuff compiled into one. I can't blame it on one particular thing. It was just a whole mess of things going on at the time.
But was like
we used to be a different company. I mean, we used to do stuff for medical devices and airbags for car companies and all kinds of other stuff.
Okay.
And right around then was when he started making the transition over, like trying to focus on just screen printing.
Even when the recession was hitting.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
That whole time. I mean, we were going through all kinds of different stuff.
So, but before that, like screen printing was just a part of a much bigger picture for the Anatol brand.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then, but then, did you guys have some things? I mean, I remember in the forums, right? Like some things came up where like maybe customer service wasn't where it should have been, and because of that, like
What customer service? At the time, we didn't really have much of anything.
didn't exist, huh? So
No,
you were
a lot of
selling
times we would
presses.
hire people from even M&R, TAS, all kinds of different technicians to come install machines for us. Fly
Okay.
people come South California, and like Texas would get people from Mexico sometimes. We were a lot bigger actually in Europe back then.
Okay. So your main market was Europe at that time in terms of screen printing.
Correct. Well, in
Whoa.
terms of everything at the time.
All right. Well, now this show has turned into a Let's Fix the Anatol brand episode, but that's okay, dude. Yeah, I guess I just had always wondered because, you kind of you hear this and that, but in my experience, from the first time that I started dealing with you guys, I was like, that's just not the case. So I don't know. It just
No.
kind of seemed odd.
When I
interesting.
started, I mean, that was my main job. I came over and, oh, here's pages of customers from years of problems. And, I mean, some of them didn't even want to talk to me. Some of them I had to hang up and say, call me back when you calm down, this or that. Maybe they've gotten rid of the machine even.
Okay.
I can only do what I can do. I can't fix everything, but I can change here moving forward.
So what is it then that you guys did? And you guys, we're going to get into the other stuff. I just want to I had it planned way later, but it's like we might as well just tackle it now and we can move on. What are you guys doing, or what did you put in place? Because it's clearly a very different story now. And you guys are obviously, from what I could tell, focused on technology and the future of all of this stuff.
Sure. At that time, I would consider us more of a family business.
Okay.
I mean, his family was working in there. Some of them have phased out a little bit. We still work with some of them here or there. But at that time, there wasn't really no service. I mean, we had the engineers building them. We had a couple people here or there. We had outside technicians that would help us out. We had a list of outside technicians we'd call. Oh, what state are you in? Let me see who's closest, kind of thing.
Oh, gotcha.
I've moved focus on, like, I'd rather not use outside technicians.
Right. Like I'm
why are we
noticing,
sending business elsewhere?
I'm noticing right now you're in a hotel, so you're
Yep.
you're probably literally knee deep in something right now, aren't you?
Yeah, I was doing an install today. New got for this guy. Used vault coming in. He found it on Digismith and setting it all up. We'll be doing training tomorrow. Finished it all up today.
Nice, man. Well, and it's not, I mean, to me, it seems like it's all sorted out. So I feel like we can kind of move past that. But it's like whatever those issues were in the past, they were in the past, and you guys have figured out an infrastructure to fix it.
For sure.
Yeah.
I hope so, at least.
It
I got
seems
the
like
email system set up. You send an email, it gets tracked with tickets, and we take care of it as soon as possible.
Are you the main traveling tech? Do you have people that?
At this point, we've got a few people underneath me as well, so I'm not the only one. I'm just trying to keep us afloat, keeping us busy,
Nice.
dealing with a lot of the major issues. Or some of the newer customers really enjoy having me out there with all the knowledge and everything. They could pretty much ask anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that too, especially when you're first automating. That's actually why I wanted to have you on, not so much to talk about. I figured we'd get all that out of the way now, but because I've considered doing it a couple times, but I always end up backing off and pussing out. And I think that this is a good opportunity for people that are considering making the transition and maybe just diving into some of the pitfalls, some of the things that can go wrong, some of the things that go right, the benefits, all that shit.
All those fun challenges you get as a screen printer.
Right, dude. And, I think my first question, because I ask all the sales reps, but again, you can't trust a goddamn sales rep because they just want to make their commission and move on. But the question that I always have is like, how, like, I understand, sure, I'm not going to be laboring. I don't have to pull the squeegees as much. But what are some other benefits of having an automatic as opposed to being a manual shop? I mean, is it consistency? I mean,
consistency is definitely one of them. I mean, your first print to your last print should definitely be more consistent. At the same time, because it's going a little faster, you can definitely screw up a lot more quicker. That's where the attention to detail comes in. Really watch it. But that consistency is going to be good. You're laying down more consistent levels of ink, too. So, like, you're using less ink, maybe. Maybe your first pull is going to be the same as your last pull.
Uh-huh.
So you're going to get consistent layers. I've had people that get their first machine, and my dryer wasn't working up until I got this thing. Well, now it's working fine. oh, maybe it wasn't the actual dryer. Maybe it was the layering of the ink I was putting down. Maybe one side was a little heavier than the other. Maybe the first pull wasn't as good as the last pull. So they
Wow.
definitely noticed the consistency.
Interesting. Yeah, that's something, dude, that literally never even crossed my mind.
Those higher mesh screens. I mean, when I used to print, I used to look at a 156 and go, that's my limit on my manual. I don't want to pull through anything
That's right.
higher.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything that came over that, I'd be like, either run it on the auto or go reburn it. I don't want to do it.
Right. Well,
Um,
like, so if you're, so let's say you are a small shop, and of course manual presses have their place. I love them. I think I like the kind of artisan nature of them and all this and that. But if you're a small shop, are there a lot of scenarios where you can even consider foregoing a manual altogether? Is
there are a lot more of those scenarios popping up. A
Yeah.
lot of people, if they can't do it on an auto, they don't want to do it. Generally speaking, most things that you can do on an auto or on a manual, you can do on an auto.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how am I going to set it up? How am I going to do it? It may be a little different. It may not be those auto speeds people are predicting, but it's faster than my manual.
Yeah, and your elbows aren't cussing you out at the end of the day, right?
Yeah,
So it's interesting. Now, oh God, there's so much stuff to ask. So
you
when
still get sore on that auto. I was just telling them today at the shop, like, oh yeah, you're used to being sore here,
Yeah.
maybe back here. I said you're gonna feel it in your stomach. I said
From
turning on, off,
Yeah, yeah.
on, off. You're gonna feel that burn in a different area. And I used to do it when I went from the manual. Oh, somebody called in sick on the auto. Come back over here for the day.
Uh,
My stomach would feel that the next day, and then I go back to the manual. It'd be a completely different thing.
your core, dog. You're working on the core. What is if somebody's so they've decided, you know what, we're just gonna automate this time. What are the things that they should consider? What are the? I feel like every salesperson tells them this. Oh, you got to do the electrical. You got to have your compressor, this and that, depending on what kind of press you get. But what are some of the other more subtle things that people don't think about or consider when they're getting their first auto in?
I always think when getting an auto, like you never know where you're going to be. So you may as well look for the future. So if you're wanting that 16 by 18 print area, why not think about that 20 by 20? What's the difference in price? Can I do it? If you're wanting one more color, or if you're wanting this amount of colors, maybe one more really wouldn't hurt for that future growth. Maybe I need an extra flash, maybe two, maybe I need a cool down.
Yeah.
Those things some people don't think about with that auto. You're going to be setting stuff up in a different order sometimes.
Yep.
A lot of times it's more of a setup and a tear down rather than setting up, oh, let me leave that up till next week. That's just going to get in my way. Somebody might screw something up. Somebody might make a mistake. Sometimes it's easier to clear those mistakes off, make it as easy as possible.
Yeah, that's interesting you bring that up because when and I've done it a handful of different times with different press or with different manufacturers and this and that, but it's like it feels sometimes like they just want to get you in one and they don't really care how many colors it's got, this and that, right? But from your experience as a new printer, is it like first off, when is a 6.8 okay? Like you would need to almost know exactly who your market is, and you have no plans for expansion to just commit to a
Those
6.8, right?
6.8s, I mean, they're good for that four-color process, one head of white. It's going to run a little slower.
Yeah.
Ideally, what those are good for is those 1-2-color jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the machines people are buying to say, I'm done with my manual. All my small orders, 2-color jobs, this and that, put it on that small auto.
Okay.
Because it's smaller in area,
Mm-hmm.
it can rotate faster. So a smaller machine doing 1 or 2-color jobs can actually produce faster than a large machine doing those same jobs.
There you go. So you will blast through it. So if you have a large volume of single, 2, 3-color gigs all the time, that's actually a beautiful setup for you.
Perfect. I got plenty of people doing even like a 5-color for that. Just bare minimums, going at it fast.
Gotcha. Okay. So they'll cover any kind of simulated stuff, but when you're wanting to add spots on top of CMYK,
When you're wanting extra flashes, you want to do 4 or 5 colors with the flash in between, you need cool downs, that's when people start getting them big suckers.
Okay. But if you were going to that's always the question, and I've asked other people this, and there really is no right answer to it, right? Like right now we're only doing 1 and 2 colors, but we plan for the future to start diving into more simulated. But you really do, as someone that's considering it, you have to know where you want to end up and what your plans are for the future.
Ideally, yeah. What kind of space do you got? Where do you want to be? Another thing is when you're looking at space, like, oh, I could fit the machine in there. I could fit the dryer in there. where am I going to put the shirts? You got an auto that's going to double your production. Where's the shirts going to go? So I've had a handful of customers go, all right, the machine's here. We're printing. Everything's good to go. And they're like 3 months later, yeah, I got to move.
Really? So now they're dealing with another install. They got to switch everything. Oh, it's a nightmare.
They don't have to deal with the training again, but yeah, the whole movement of it and stuff like that, the whole hassle.
Yeah, dude, that would suck. It would be very, very frustrating. I think like you just got to know where you're going to end up, man. I think that's really the trick to it. And that was part of the reason like I backed out on the last one too, is because this space is so small. Like, and even your guys' guy Michael over there, we were like talking about measurements, and we're like, dude, it's just not going to goddamn fit. We can fit it in there, but you're not going to be able to walk around the thing.
Yeah, you need about 20 inches around it to comfortably walk around it, unless you're going with a larger press. Because you got to think, you also got to load the screen straight in typically, unless you go in with. We have the option to go from the side. It's just not as quick.
Yeah.
I mean, side loading just is, when you calculate it, it's not as quick to load a screen in.
That makes
Sliding
sense.
it straight in, lock it in, you're good to go.
Yeah, it does make more sense, right? Because like from the side, it's cumbersome too. You're kind of like, yeah.
Yeah, you got to open your safety bars, all that jazz.
Yeah, it makes sense, dude. What are some other complications that people do, or maybe they just don't think about it when they bring the automatics in that will arise?
I mean, the electric's a big deal. We talked about, like, the electrician a lot of times will say, I need the machine where it's going to be. I need to know everything. Like, sometimes, all right, get it close. Get a wire. Leave us some slack. We can cut it off and take it out. Like, just get it there, because once the machine's in the way, it's hard to get up top.
Gotcha.
And you really don't want it on the bottom, even though you can do it both ways, but now you got something on the floor to trip over.
So you as somebody that's planning to have the tech come out and install the automatic, like you have to force the electrician. You have to have a plan on where the
you have
drop's
to envision where you want that press before anything happens. A lot of people don't get, like, let's get it there and figure it out. Like, have an idea.
Right.
Ideally, if you can drop even your flash cables outside the press, it'll be a lot easier later. If you know where that head 2, head 3 might go, drop it that direction, put it out there, and we can figure out how to get it closer later. Okay. But at least it's close.
Okay. What about just because I know that you guys have like the Volt, which is all electric, and I know it's a very big, it's a great selling press and all that. But a lot of people, it's a lot more expensive, so some will opt for something different, like air, right?
Correct.
What are some issues with an air install that people don't think about or consider? I'm sure the cost
having the chiller ready.
Yeah.
Having your compressor ready. I mean, you can't level and set up the machine without turning it on and having air to it?
Really?
Yeah, like sometimes, the compressor's not here yet, or the electrician's coming 2 days from now or something. Like, well, I can't really do much without having it turned on and being able to move it. So that's a big question people assume sometimes, and it's in the paperwork, and they just don't look at it close enough.
And then if you fly out and expect all these things to be there and they're not, and you have to hang out an extra 3 days, I mean, that's going to cost money, of course.
It can.
Yeah. So they need to be aware of all of these situations that could come up. And so ideally, you need to have everything kind of pre-ran to where it's going to end up.
Yeah, I mean, it's not ideal to wing it. It's going to be way more expensive if you figure out where you want it, what you want to do.
Yeah.
We can move little things, adjust that. Ideally, we've been working on like a shop layout calculator type thing, so people can do kind of that stuff a little more digitally.
That'd be cool.
Technology coming on. It's been a project in motion for a while.
What are you trying to do? What do you mean?
Like we're going to have an application that you can like go into, and you can like drop equipment in. You can even put other companies' equipment in there and size it up, but it'll have specific measurements of all ours. It'll give you all your safety walking around distance.
Damn.
And you can kind of lay it out. You can put posts in where your electric wants to be, stuff like that.
Damn, is that close?
Not at the moment.
Technology is never close, dude.
We've been working on it.
Yeah. Well,
we've got a bunch of different stuff in motion, but it's always in motion. I don't like to put forward anything till I've seen it and tested it.
Right, there you go. Well, whoops, it's out there now, dude. So now, dude, you just
eventually
you guys just put the pressure on Anatol to get it done, man. Because, dude, I guarantee you after this show, people are gonna be like, "Yo, where's that calculator at, man?" And we kind of talked about it already, but what are the biggest benefits of automation? I mean, yeah, I mean, we kind of already talked about it. You got the consistency, which is the biggest selling point, right?
Yep.
Having the ability to get the same amount of ink on every substrate over and over and over again. Anything else that could be a benefit that maybe people don't think about
I
often?
mean, you could technically, with less work and labor, you can work longer if you had to. But ideally, you're doing double the amount of work in half of the amount of time sometimes. So
Yeah.
sometimes there is no more work. Sometimes it's done and you just get to go home early.
Right. Yeah, and especially if you're a small shop, right? That's a big deal.
Yeah, you could spend more time getting those sales,
Right.
growing that business, getting ready for that next location, that next purchase.
Uh-huh. Huh. How often do you find people regret when they bring it in?
They just regret that size. They regret not going that step up. I get that a lot. Like in the future, I should have gone with this because I don't know where I'm going to be 2 weeks from now. Sometimes those 2 inches makes that big of a difference a year or two later.
Right. So you have seen that that's a consistent issue. Is you always like whatever you're doing, you should always at least add something extra to it for the future.
If it was me, yeah,
Yeah, see, that's a
for
good
sure.
point, man. That's a good point. So, like, if your salesman is pressuring you just to take one in, it doesn't necessarily mean that's the right thing for you. You need to know where you want to end up, and you need to consider all those factors before you pull the trigger on
Make it
that.
less of a regret later.
All right.
Fortunately for you guys, we have a great trade-in program. I mean, Anatols tend to hold their value, so we're one of the few companies that say, "Oh, you needed that bigger press? Let's talk numbers. Maybe we could take that back, get it to somebody else with a limited warranty,
Yep.
and we'll go ahead and get you a brand new one." I mean, it's a pain to do that swap. It's a pain to do that whole install all over again, but it makes people happy.
And you're not stuck. You're not
You're
just
not
stuck.
stuck. We give you that option to grow. We want to see you guys grow as much as we want to grow.
Yeah, that's good, man. All right. Our setups, especially when you're transitioning from a manual to an automatic, are setups just longer and more cumbersome on an automatic, especially if you're compared to doing it on a manual press? Or is it easier? I don't know.
It depends. I mean, it's what you're used to.
Yeah.
Um, Most manuals have the adjustments in the back for that micros. So most people are used to work on that lateral this way and one this way,
Mm-hmm.
whereas on the auto, we take that and flip it to the side. We
Okay.
make manuals like that too, so if you want to get moving, you want it to be the same on both, we have that option.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of backwards to a lot of people. You're thinking in two different planes.
Mm.
So that switch over right away initially can be challenging for some people.
Yeah.
Some people who don't see those vertices, those planes, stuff like that, they can't see that movement. They can't understand what they're really doing.
Right. Right. So you've
One of the
literally
biggest
seen.
mistakes I see with the micros is people having the left side locked because we've got the clamps on the right side. We want full movement of that screen. If you've got your left side locked, where's it going to go?
Ain't gonna go nowhere.
So they build up all that pressure, and then they start printing, and they go, well, why'd it move?
Right. Right. So yeah, so on your and that's kind of specific to Anatol, but you have the micros on this clamp over here. This one, it needs to be free floating in the clamp, right? Yeah.
Or at least open enough. I mean, maybe we need just a hair. I can do that with it closed, but when you're talking any
Right.
major movement, yeah, no way.
I gotcha. What about things like stencil breakdown, like compared to what you were able to get away with on them? Have you seen any of that kind of crazy shit go down where they have to change
It really
their
depends on your
emulsions?
print.
Yeah.
I mean, we've done everything. I mean, I don't know if you guys know much about the express screens or the resos, the kind of throwaway mesh. It's coming from overseas. Basically, it prints out from a printer right onto the mesh. It's like a wax-coated
Oh yeah, I have seen
thin
that.
mesh. It's very fragile.
Mhm.
They really can't stretch it super tight because of this fragility. Basically, we can print with that, no problem. We just need to set the pressure right, a little less pressure.
Yeah.
The nice thing about our system is even our pneumatic presses, they're based on one chop cylinder now. So everything's really mechanical. We reduce the amount of air consumption, making it quieter, smoother, stuff like that.
Mhm.
So we can dial in that pressure corner to corner. We can really get perfect evenly across if we want.
Interesting.
So we're getting consistency. That with it going mechanical as opposed to pressure related, you don't get those ups and those downs from the compressor. So 30 psi difference can create a big difference in pressure at your squeegee.
Yeah, I hear a lot of arguments about that. Like, people, it seems like there's two sides, because some swear by having that, the shock absorbing nature of like pneumatic choppers and all this and that. But in your experience, it's just not the case, huh? Having that mechanical.
I can do the same thing by controlling the corners.
And
I got the
and
same
it's
control
mechanical.
on my pneumatics as I do on my mechanical ones.
Right.
Exact same setup. I just can't be an idiot and set it to 30 psi and leave it. I have to adjust it depending on my ink, stuff like that.
Right.
So if you're looking for something real basic, and I mean, we could put those in our machines as well. We've been doing those for years.
But that's really old technology, right?
We steer people away from it because it's just another thing to break.
Right.
Why would you not want to be more precise and dial it in? Get
This
a better print.
This is turning into an Anatol commercial, motherfucker. Hang on. All right, so we kind of covered that, though. Like, setup times, it's just there is going to be some differences when you're transitioning from a manual to an auto. But overall, if you have
Generally going to be about the same.
If you have some basic mechanical understandings, right, left and right.
Once you get the hang of it.
Yeah, you're good to go. It's not going to be a bad
I mean, I got
transition.
people who will spend the time to set it up and manually pull the squeegee. It's like, you couldn't load that squeegee in there and hit the button? You did all the hard work.
Really? You'll see that kind of shit?
Yeah, but then I've seen other people with the registration systems, and they're not registering anything. They're just locking it in and going.
Wow. So what, in your experience moving, once you've gotten the press kind of installed with these people, what are some of the common calls that you get? Like, this person's just got set up with the press and they're trying to figure it all out. What are the common calls?
I can usually tell based off the first call whether they're one of those people that jumped right in with 2 feet. They start using it day one, or they call me 2 weeks later and go, "How do I do this?"
Right. You're right. Like,
how do I make the indexer lock?
So those are little things, though, like the little nuance of a press, like getting the index locked and all that kind of stuff, understanding how to...
People get scared of it, so they step away.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're going to make this purchase, let's jump in with 2 feet. I would recommend practicing on it, just using it right away. If you go right back to that manual, when you go to use it 2-3 weeks from now, you're not going to remember.
Gotcha. So what is it? What is the process of training? Like, when you bring your first press in, do you guys provide a certain level of training? You run them through the menus, all that kind of stuff?
We do full computer training, show them how to use every single button on it, every single little feature for the most part. I don't know if you guys have noticed my YouTube videos, but we're trying to do more of those to help people out. That's been saving us a lot of work and service.
Yeah, and we'll link the Anatol YouTube video channel in this one.
Yeah, whatever. You'll find it.
It's there, dude.
But yeah, I mean, typically most people just get going right at it. I don't hear from a lot of people for a while.
Okay.
Generally, the people I'm hearing from right away are the ones that forgot something. I do get a couple people every once in a while that just don't have a full understanding of the science behind the screen printing. So they call and automatically assume it's the machine. So we kind of go through everything. We'll start at the basics sometimes. We'll have to go through how to make a screen, all the little stuff occasionally.
Interesting. And those are, a lot of the times, those are the clients that are going to get most frustrated with the processes because they don't really even understand the basics of screen printing to begin with.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, for the most part for me, when I was at that first shop, I was hitting buttons, guessing, hoping for the best. People were like, "Oh man, it looks great. It's better than most people." I'm like, "Awesome, glad to hear it." But I had no clue what I was doing.
Yeah.
I really didn't start figuring out until I had to start explaining it to people. Well, why do you do this? I never thought about that. Let me give it some thought. When you can put reason behind all that stuff, especially when you put science-based reason behind all that stuff, it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, the why is also always the most important question. You tell them how, but the why is really how it sets in stone for people most of the time.
Yeah.
Are there any funky things, though? Like, I guess the whole point, the reason I'm asking these kind of questions is like to prepare people for the worst. I guess that's kind of my nature. I just like, oh, like this is gonna fucking go wrong and this is gonna go wrong. So I feel like in my mind, it's important to understand all of this shit before you dive into it, so that you're aware of it, so that it doesn't freak you the fuck out when it happens, right? So, like, are there common things that break, not just Anatol specific, but automatic press specific, that are more likely to go down in your first year of ownership or your first 6 months of ownership? Things that people could be aware of?
flash bulb the first time I turn it on.
Those things.
Usually those things are good the first time you turn them on, or they're bad.
Really?
Oh,
So
I've seen them first time, boop, pop right away, and oh, okay, new one.
there you go.
But usually, unless you break them, those things last forever.
And then what about like just I mean on an air press it's different, but do you start to see like within the first year like air leaks and things like that have to be addressed with?
Generally speaking, nobody can 100% guarantee that they won't get an air leak. I could leave the next day and you could have an air leak. That's just generally air, how it is. It's disposable parts. They're made to be thrown away. They're cheap.
Yeah.
Newer presses, not as much because we're limiting the air that we actually use.
And that's
So
not just
instead of using
specific.
4 cylinders, we'll use one, little things like that. And generally speaking, other people are trying to do the same types of things.
That's what I was going to say. So that's not just specific to Anatol. Most presses are trying to start removing air where they can.
Yeah,
Giving
I
it
mean,
a
it's
shot.
going to save your energy consumption and stuff like that. I mean, certain areas it's becoming more and more expensive. Certain people get charged with like peak hour usage or because their electricity spikes up and down and stuff like that. So there's different ways to get around those types of issues as well.
Gotcha.
One of those is reducing your compressor usage because that does draw quite a bit of electricity.
Right. What's the benefits, like, as we're talking about these parts and different types of presses and stuff like that, the benefits between, like, you know, the servo index compared to, like, the pneumatic index? Why is servo better? Why is servo, like, stroke better than pneumatic stroke? What are the benefits?
Anything with air has to have a shock absorber to absorb the pressure. Anything with a shock absorber is going to slow you down because it has to stop and wait and find a proximity sensor, and then it can tell the computer, hey, now I can go again.
Okay.
When you talk certain types of motors, you can talk AC motors, DC motors, similar to stroke heads on almost any press is an AC or DC motor.
Okay.
Typically, those have to have proxy sensors as well, so it's going to come to a certain point, find it, go back. So it's going to be really similar to your air, but maybe a little better because it doesn't have that actual absorber.
And this is an AC motor, not a servo motor.
Correct. These are
Understood.
ACs and DC motors. They're going to be similar to that.
Okay.
A servo motor, what it does is it calibrates. So it's got a little computer inside of it, and it talks to the computers, and it finds a home position when it calibrates, and then from there it can make adjustments to go wherever you want it to go. So there is no wait time. It does exactly what you want it to do when you want it to do it.
Interesting. Well, so, all right, now I'm going to do some brand comparison because I know a lot of, even on the stroke, most of them are just using AC. They're usually for the stroke they just use AC motors,
Correct.
right? And I think the
I mean,
Volt does
we
too,
offer
right?
options to do servo motors on the heads, which gives you things like digital control, digital pressure, stuff like that, all from your computer, as opposed to going over and doing it at your head anymore. But it's quite a bit more expensive.
Right.
There's not as many of them out there, stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
So you're getting a little bit more of a higher end machine, but people, when they see it, if you go to resell it, are going to go, what is this? What's going on?
They don't even necessarily understand the value of it.
Correct.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to, and it's hard to, from the damn brochures, it's hard to understand what the difference is between even an AC and a servo motor.
With the servo motors, you can adjust like that pressure. So I can overpressurize like I would on an air cylinder, and I can digitally control where that motor goes to stop that squeegee.
That seems great to me. I had someone try to, and I'm not going to go into who it was, but they were trying to tell me like why you want air choppers as opposed to mechanical fucking, I don't even know if those are using servos to actually initiate the chop and all that stuff, but he was saying that there's like shock absorption, so when you have uneven pallets, it's like right, it does this kind of thing. Is that just like a line of bullshit?
Why do you have uneven pallets would be my question.
Right, there you go. So that's another thing with automatic
I've heard
ownership.
that from certain ink manufacturers, and I mean, I understand kind of what you're saying. It definitely makes it easier for the person that doesn't know what they're doing. But I prefer to have that control in my hands. I'd prefer to figure it out. I'd rather dial it in. It's going to give me the crispest print every time.
But that understanding can be learned, so it's not something that should keep somebody away from getting the best tool right. Like if in today's age, in 2019, are you choosing mechanical choppers or are you choosing pneumatic?
For me,
Yeah, for you.
choose the electric, the mechanical.
electric,
I mean,
yeah.
it's more consistent.
Yeah.
when you talk compressor, you're talking a 30 psi difference. That can vary. So if I'm want that variable in ink.
Okay. And yeah, one more time, you kind of cut out there though. So you just the
Yeah,
variable, the loss of variable is a beautiful thing when you can control
sure.
it.
That 30 psi, you don't want that variable pressure.
Right. Hey, goddamn Skype, huh? Hey guys, how about Skype, huh? How it just cuts in and out like just a really reliable source, Skype. Yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense, man. I feel like in 2019, like air is just slowly starting to get phased out, right? It's just you're gonna see more and more manufacturers start to get rid of it.
Correct. If you look at the history of the automatics, they started all electric, but they were way too expensive. At one point between pneumatic, they even tried hydraulic. But the oils with the inks, all that stuff, a lot of people were using plastic. It didn't mix well, water and oil. And
Yeah.
so they quickly got rid of the hydraulic stuff pretty fast and moved to your pneumatic because it was cheap and disposable.
Gotcha.
I mean, if you're that hobbyist who loves taking apart airlines and taking things apart, it's fun.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like
I spend my time printing.
he's actually in here right now, Mr. Vega 23. He did this he's been working on this really cool series. He's like refurbishing like an M&R. And
Okay.
but like you see in the videos, dude, like the tedious he has to he's replacing every little air fitting, right? And it's like an entire goddamn video series of just rebuilding a lot of stuff.
Yep.
Right, so when you start moving
there's a
away
lot of
from
tricks
that,
you learn too.
right? It's a really cool series, though. You got to check it out. But yeah, man, It's like you can see the complications that could come with something like that, right?
Yes.
What is the biggest issues experienced press owners, people that know what the hell they're doing? They've been in this business for a while, but they've got automatic presses. What are some of the things that they deal with on a daily basis with their presses? Things that go wrong, whatever.
I mean, if it breaks down, having that background of knowing diagnostic, checking, stuff like that, knowing how to use a voltmeter helps out. Having that knowledge of just simple mechanics can help out, because if I know this head's not working, but I know this head is working, if I have 3 components between that variable, I can swap one part at a time and figure out exactly which part that is pretty quickly and figure out which part I need to order. But some of those people, they can't get in there with the wrenches, or sometimes it takes them a little longer. They don't want that downtime, stuff like that.
So you'll see a lot of that, just it's little simple diagnostic stuff, but because they don't have the mechanical capabilities, it can put them down for weeks sometimes, huh?
Yeah, definitely having somebody that knows that stuff helps out.
Do most bigger shops that are running multiple autos, they tend to have almost like the mechanic of the joint that can fix the stuff?
Large shops sometimes even have like a whole division.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I've been in large shops where they've got $1 million ink mixing products, and they're mixing their own inks. They got mechanics driving around on golf carts.
Shit,
let me stop by this press and fix it, and then go to the next one. And
that sounds like something in China, not in America no more.
Oh, I've seen it
They're
here.
out there, huh? Wow.
I've got a company in Pennsylvania. They have a whole business park.
Yeah.
All printing in different products and books, bags, everything.
Damn, dude. Hey, and guys, real quick before we move on, make sure that you are hashtagging print myth busts. Any kind of myths or questions you have about screen printing myths, be sure to submit those questions so that we can hit Drew up at the end of this little segment and ask him. So hashtag print myth bust. Any kind of questions you have about automation or automatics, and just be sure to submit those questions. And you can also start submitting your Q&As just so that I don't have to wait as long. Anyway. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but I just want to revisit it for someone that's considering their first one. What is the most common pallet to print head combo that you've seen? 6/8.
Depends on the year.
Yeah.
I've actually we've been calculating this information actually, and the market seems to fluctuate a little bit. Generally speaking, we tend to sell more volts than anything, so people do like that all electric, that noise gets down.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, I've seen the market move. At one point, it was right around the 6/8 and the 7/8. maybe a little bit smaller of a print area, a lot of those little mom and pop shops. But the market does seem to be moving back up for those bigger people as well. So we're seeing a lot more movement of the bigger presses as well. So in the last year, I think it was a little bigger towards the 10/8s, 10/12s, right around that area.
But based on what you were saying earlier, though, like the 6/8s or the they're very. It's just really small. It's not. You should consider going to like a 10/8 or something like that, right? If it's going to be your first, it allows you to grow into it. It's a good place to
That's
start.
gonna. I mean, it depends on what those colors you're wanting to do. I mean, I've met shops that I don't ever want to do those 4 or 5 color jobs. They just don't want it.
Yeah.
So
That
you
makes
really
sense.
need to know what your market is. If you're doing it and you want to do it fast, I mean, then you got to start thinking about how often do I want to flash? Am I one of those people that flashes between every color? Because I can do that on my auto too.
Right.
Do I want to do wet on wet printing? I can go a lot faster.
Right.
But there's some of that variable in quality. So, I mean, a lot of times people are either on one end or the other. Do I want speed in production? Am I okay with some of the quality going down? Or do I want it to be crisp and perfect? Do I take a little bit more time? I mean, it's the same on the manual. I could do the exact same thing.
Right. Interesting, man. It's funny. I never even really thought about that. Like even just the ideas on how many times you'll flash and that how fast you're going can affect that final output quality of what you're printing, huh?
You only got one flash and you want to do your production. Every time you need to come back around and do that flash, you may as well cut your production in half.
Right.
Whatever you could be doing, it's now been cut in half, and
Yeah.
every time you go around, keep cutting it in half.
Yeah. I mean, I hear a lot about wet on wet, and I know that there's great shops that do it with just one flash, but it just always seems to me like, God, I at some point in the middle of that run, I'm going to want to do a little flashy flash. You know what I mean?
Depends on your artwork when it comes down to that.
Yeah.
Really, that comes down to the experienced printer, having the right inks and the right artwork, and right off contact, right pressure. All that stuff's going to make that happen a little easier.
So you'll see really big shops that are doing it with just one flash, and they're just wet on wetting everything else.
No
and
flash if they have to, sometimes, yeah.
killing it. Just killing it.
That whites, you need it. But other than that, yeah, I mean, it really depends on how it's set up.
Thanks,
a lot
Jimmy.
of times it comes all the way back to the artwork.
Hmm.
Having a good artist that can work with you, not an artist that's not going to tell you how to do the artwork, one that's going to work with you.
Yeah.
Because that transition can mean a big difference.
Mhm.
A lot of people I see don't use registration marks sometimes. It's like, why not? At least have it there. At least give it a try. If you don't use it, you don't use it, but at least you tried. It might make it easier.
Right. Interesting, dude. Do you see any success with people using like the pre-registration and all that stuff? Are you familiar with that whole process going down? And
I have used it personally with like direct to screen stuff like that, just the palette portion of it.
yeah.
But I was updating a guy's press. So like I said, I do a lot more of the difficult stuff nowadays with the Anatol side of things. I leave a lot of our newer guys out to do some of the installs, maybe some of the easier stuff.
Yeah.
We were actually putting a lift-up head on a press that didn't have one before. We were putting an Aries 2 update on it and all that. So we were doing a full update, giving him all the features he wanted.
Okay.
He showed me his setup, and it worked really well. He did do some modifications. He's not using it direct out of the box Anatol. He made some things easier for himself.
Uh-huh.
So when he prints out his films, he's printing little dots right into the artwork. It's his first template every time, so everyone has them. They're all in the same place. What he does is he hole punches those. So that way he can come over to his pin bars and it lines up to his pin bars. So he's always got a tight hole. He's never reusing those carrier sheets, stuff like that.
Yeah.
He's not taping it to a carrier sheet, so there's no play between the surfaces.
Interesting.
And then actually, instead of using the carrier sheet as the main holding source, they just use it to line it up for the most part. They still print registration marks down the middle.
Yeah.
And they set a laser level from the hardware store down the middle on their exposure unit, and they double check their registration marks with it. And then instead of just leaving it there, they tape it down the glass so it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, yeah. Right. Wow.
These are the people that aren't micro-regging. They're just locking it in and going. They're not needing to do much of anything. Process printing, photograph printing, all that stuff.
That's crazy. God, I got to go visit that shop and document that shit. That sounds
They also have a
good,
skate
dude.
shop in their shop.
They what?
They have a skate shop in there too. So
That's
you walk
what's up.
through this. You walk through the skate shop. They got the big press there, and then you walk out back. They got a vert ramp in the back, loading dock.
What the fuck? Yeah, I need to go swing by that shop, man. Okay, here you go. This is an interesting question. Back to hey man, let's just make this an Anatol commercial. How about it? What do you guys think? Let's just make it an Anatol commercial. Why would an existing shop that's running some blues or some greens, why would they switch to red? What's your sales pitch?
I think stability. I think it's more sturdy. We put a lot into the engineering of making it as solid as possible, less deflection, little deflection, those types of things. I mean, even going to the trade shows. I mean, everyone always thinks that we're always butting heads. I'll go to the trade shows. I'll sit down with M&R. I'll sit down with Rock. It's not that big of a deal.
No.
I mean, I see them in other countries even. I'm down in Ecuador. They lost my tools. I walked over to the Rock guy. Hey, can I borrow a few things? Here you go. So I mean, it's not like people think. We're not butting heads. We're not fighting over each other. We talk.
We just talk shit behind each other's back. That's what we do. Let's be fucking honest.
I try not to do that.
I got you, man. But from a technology standpoint as well. What about technology? Let's pitch it.
We're trying to make it go as digital as possible. I mean, ideally, functioning the press now is to the point where I describe it to people as like, how hard is it to learn? Well, you know how when you get that new cell phone, that new tablet, maybe the software got updated and the buttons are in a different place. You can do new things. You got to figure out where those buttons are and what they do. Once you figure that out, it's relatively easy. A lot of people get in there and the first thing they go is, I don't know what to do. Right. All right, so where would you start on your manual? Let's start there. Right. All right, let's do the exact same thing. How do I register? Well, I can tell you how I register, but really it's the same no matter what machine it is.
Awesome.
My preference is film registration, so I'll line up my film to the palette, line everything up, and get it as close as I can.
Yeah.
Some people just go with a center line. I'm okay with that if you can do it, if it works for you.
Yeah.
There's 2 rules in screen printing. Am I happy with it, and is the customer going to pay for it? That's about it.
There you go. Are there like like for me the big thing with Anatol, I mean granted you guys have all the other presses, but the reason I became an Anatol fanboy was because of the Volt. Right, and because when you're looking at the technology on the Volt and what it is you guys are trying to do with that, it's just to me. And again, man, I don't run an automatic, so I'm kind of speaking out of turn here. But to me, like as someone who was shopping the first time, it just seems like the best option. But why is all electric option such a strong contender?
We gotta talk consumption of energy. So you don't have the compressor, you don't have the space for it, you don't have the noise from it. Which means you can reduce the noise in the actual machine. You're not giving off any air, stuff like that. I can run the Volt and have a conversation with the person next to me. I can have a conversation with the person across the room. So my production instantly goes up. I can talk to my production. There's less mistakes. Hey, I got a problem. Hey, stop. Something like that comes up. Even if it's just, hey, Joe's going to be here in 20 minutes to pick up his shirts. I know now. I can hear.
Yeah. That's sick. Yeah, I heard it at the trade show. I was like, is this thing fucking on, dude? It's all, it's just like, all you really hear is the wind off the pallets, and you hear the squeak.
The original ones are a little more noisy. We've definitely done as much as we can to reduce the noise. Sometimes it gets people to a scary level, like, I'm afraid somebody's going to get in it.
You're right, dude. Yeah.
So, yeah, we do. I mean, we have all the safeties and stuff like that to help with that. But, yeah, that becomes a concern. We've got the beeper to say get out of the way.
Right.
But, I mean, the being able to talk, I mean, people are saying that noises and stuff like that, they can cause heart problems over time. They can make you more fatigued. So just having the noise consumption down makes your employees healthier, makes them be able to have a longer work day if needed, things like that.
Yeah. I was talking to one of the sales reps, Mike, over there, and he was saying how, like, you can – and, like, I'm sure all the press are doing this now, but you have, like, Wi-Fi updating capability. Like, so when there's software updates and shit, it's just so easy. It almost happens, like, automatically, right? Like, all that.
Not 100% automatic, but, yeah, we're getting there. I mean, I was on the phone with somebody last night, actually. I'm like, hey, let me see what's going on. Give me the password to your press. And he gives it to me, and all of a sudden it beeps. He's like, oh, my God, what's it doing? I'm like, I'm turning it on.
Nice,
and he's like, oh, okay.
See, that's pretty cool, man. And is that where your guys' kind of your mind is moving forward? Is just that technology staying on the cutting edge of all that as much as possible?
Yeah, the Wi-Fi is going to let us do some new stuff. So we've definitely been researching different things. We've been researching different camera technologies as well to do different things with those.
Yeah, like spy on your printers?
It's possibility at one point. The other option is to
And
add them into the heads.
tape. Okay, there you go.
The other option is to add them into your head so you could bring up like your ink levels right on your screen, like check head 4 on the other side just by hitting a button instead of walking all the way over there and stopping production.
That's awesome. Yeah, man, I feel like you guys are going in the right direction. I understand there's a if somebody gets set up with a again, man, this is an Anatol commercial. I feel like this is what's happening. I try not to do it, but it ends up fucking happening. Are they if they call Anatol now and they have a technical question, is someone going to pick up?
At this very time, depends on what number you call.
Well, I mean, is there customer service like through normal times of the day and all that kind of stuff? You guys have
Correct.
all that sorted
Yes.
out, right?
Also, any voicemail you leave, if somebody doesn't pick up, also comes to my cell phone.
Oh, to you directly?
It comes to my work cell phone, yeah. I can check it over the weekend, anything like that. So, I mean, I'll write people over the weekend sometimes. I'll call them back, depending on the emergency. If there's something I can do, why not? If I have the time and availability, I'll go ahead and help them.
Oh, you poor bastard.
But there's only so much I can do. I don't have access to parts labels, shipping over the weekend, stuff like that.
Well, how is your guys' parts department in terms of that kind of thing? Is it lined out?
It's good. Ideally, we try to help you as fast and best as possible. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times what we try to do is, hey, what part exactly do you need? So there's less confusion. Can you send me pictures? Can you point to it? Things like that.
Okay.
What kind of descriptors can you give me? Can you measure this? Can you measure that kind of thing?
Yeah.
You can get a lot off the serial number, but we just can't get everything.
Right. Are there any like interesting diagnostic tools within the new software and stuff like that that make it easier to diagnose? I feel like from a standpoint of an electric press, right, that's using technology to control the servo motors, I feel like there would be more capabilities in terms of like
it can tell me where the failures are.
See, that's freaking cool, man. And so
it
you
can
have
say
access.
There's the problems on head 4. Go look at it and figure out what happened. Stuff like that. You gotta look up top. You gotta look underneath. It directs you to where to go.
That's cool. Yeah, man, that's a big selling point, bro. So that's why, man. And so if you're in green and blue and you're considering switch, Anatol's got it going on for you guys.
We try to make it toolless. So hopping in there, you shouldn't need a tool on a day-to-day basis. A lot of times I'll tell people, if you need tools, maybe it takes 5 seconds to pick up the phone and call me first. Right. Let's make sure what you're doing is appropriate for what you're trying to do, things like that.
Right.
But on a day-to-day basis, you shouldn't need tools. The squeegees and flood bars lock in with a snap, and that's about it.
Yeah, I saw that. That's cool too. There's no airlines to. You guys figured out like a mechanical way to lock the screens down, so you could leave it overnight technically.
I was at ISS 2 years ago. Engineers from Poland for M&R were walking through.
Oh,
and I talk to them every year, and they come up and they know some of our engineers because we've got the facility in Poland as well.
Yeah.
So they asked me 2 years ago, how do these squeegees and flood bars work? And I said, here, try it. I'm not afraid. Like,
yeah.
If you don't try it here in front of me, you're just going to go somewhere else and try it.
Yeah, they'll just buy a press and take it for it. That's the game, dude.
Sure, if they wanted to. I mean, one of our original engineers came from M&R, so they're good friends with each other. We have a long history with some of their engineers and stuff like that.
You can see a lot of similarities in your guys' presses too, in certain ways. Like just the general silhouette of the presses. There's similarities.
Supposedly the story was he walked in and saw one and said, "I can do that better."
There you go.
But we'll see.
They seem good, man. So we're gonna move on from all the Anatol talk. I feel like
We'll talk about printing?
Yeah, I have so many questions when it comes to automating though, and it's hard for me sometimes to even get the questions out because there's like all these little things, and even right now I'm kind of drawing a blank. You guys in the chat,
whatever you can print on the manual, you can do on that auto.
Right.
I can go into different things that I have done.
I think really it's more just about the fears of it for people like myself and stuff when you're diving into this new world. I think what holds a lot of people back, like even myself included, is just it just seems like such a huge bite to take out of something, right? Compared to what you're used to in the industry. And like I feel like even with this interview, I kind of wanted to alleviate some of that anxiety. Can you give any like final words on automation that maybe will help alleviate some of that anxiety for someone that's considering it but that hasn't pulled the trigger yet? Weird question.
I'm not sure where you're going with that.
Make it less scary for them. What are some?
Ideally, it's all about practice and working with it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I get my driver's license and never drive that car, am I really going to be any good at it?
Yeah.
The important thing is to not be afraid of it as much as possible.
Yeah.
There's very little you can actually do to screw it up. Yes, there are a few things that you can do that can really damage it, but they're very few and far.
Okay.
Ideally, we try. I mean, when they give me a machine and they say test it, my ideal is how can I break it? And if I can break it, then there's a problem.
Gotcha.
Ideally, well, you shouldn't be doing that. Well, I shouldn't be able to do that.
Right. That's fair.
So,
All right. Yeah. So let's move on to talk about some actual screen printing stuff. So before we get into that, though, what is it about the industry that drew you to it from the beginning? Why do you like screen printing so much?
I like the art. I like that it's trying to replicate as much as possible. I mean, I had a background. When I went to college, I went for teaching, and my main study was art and music for elementary school. So I really had a good history in art, and when I jumped in, I mean, it feels good to create something hands-on.
Yeah.
It's a little messy, but
yeah, I remember the first time the first time I ever saw a custom shirt, my friend had done a screen print in graphic design in high school, and it's just like seeing them take something of theirs and put it on a thing, and now it's in front of everybody. It's just like whoa, you can do that, right? And then you start looking into it, and sure as shit, you can do it right out of your home if you want to.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
I like going to shows because it gives me a chance to print again. It gives me that experience. We try to do some videos here or there, so that's kind of fun.
Oh, making videos is fun until it's not. But for a long time, it's very fun.
That editing gets rough.
Oh, dude, the edit is the bane of my existence. The first 200 videos, I really enjoyed it. It was like, oh, this is so fucking fun. And then after that, you're like, oh, I'm not doing another one.
Yeah, a lot of people in my office, too, they're like, well, it's a 5-minute video. Why does it take all day to do it?
Bitch, if you don't know, then shut up. Here, I'll tell you what, come edit a couple of them for me and then come back talk to me.
Just filming it sometimes, trying to get the right things out in the right order.
Yeah.
I'm not as good at it, so sometimes it takes me a few takes. And
oh, me too. Every video you see it done is actually there's been 2 to 3 walkthroughs of the same line. Usually I completely fumble the first one, so I'll walk back to where I was and I'll do it again.
Yeah. At some point, we're trying to do classes maybe at some point. We got to finish doing the washout room, the dark room, stuff like that to get that up and running.
Oh, over at your guys' facility? Where are you guys at again?
Point.
What's the main facility?
We're in Lake Bluff, so it's like the north suburbs of Chicago.
Oh, right on.
We're
come out there.
Maybe only 15 to 30 minutes away from the border of Wisconsin as well, so we're right there on the border.
Yeah. Miserable ass weather.
Sometimes. I'm never there. I don't know.
I'm like, why does everybody not just live in Phoenix? It's just so wonderful, dude. Why do you think, from like your experience, I feel like you've seen a lot of shops, right? Like one thing that you get to do that most people don't is you get like a first person view of shops. And why is it that some of them do so well? You know, some of them just seem to have work coming all the time. But then the next one maybe could have the exact same equipment, but they don't get any of the work. Like they don't do so well. What is it that you've seen? Yeah.
One is screen printing. You're never done learning. You can be the expert screen printer, but you've never learned everything. There's always one variable out there that you haven't experienced. You can know a lot, and you can know how to work through those little fumbles and the quickest ways to work through them, but there's always going to be something out there that's more tricky than something else.
Right.
Getting through that definitely helps to just fumble through it as many times as possible and see what works, what doesn't work. Right. Even those failures, though, giving them a second try sometimes for something else might work.
Yeah, so accepting that you don't know everything is a big difference, huh?
Correct. Even if somebody tells me something, maybe I'm willing to try it. Maybe I agree, maybe I disagree. Maybe it's just not my style and I don't like it.
Yeah.
Maybe it works, I just don't want to do it.
Right.
If you can admit that, you're going to be better off. A lot of people, the hardest ones to work through are the ones that have been printing for 30 years and aren't even willing to listen.
Their way or the highway, even if their way isn't the best way anymore.
So at a certain point, like I'll recommend it, but you just got to step back and go, all right, fine. And I've learned to do that more and more over the years.
Yeah.
The other thing I try to do is come bring your machine, I'm setting it up. I've tried where I've been the one to print on it. I know how to print on it. I'm not the one that needs to practice printing on it. I'll give you recommendations. I'll let you even start fumbling through it. If I'm noticing you're making the same mistake 2 or 3 times, I may mention it the first 2 or 3 times. After that, I'm going to let you figure it out on your own because I'm not going to be there to remind you.
All right.
So a lot of that tends to help alleviate some of that next day phone calls, stuff like that. Getting people more comfortable is getting them diving right in.
That's why you kind of keep mentioning it about because it was a recurring theme with you. Like, well, you just got to use it. So you experience a lot of people that have like this timid approach to these things.
Yeah, you got to get in there. I mean, how much can you really screw up? I mean, I printed a pallet. Okay.
Yeah.
Like I mean, as long as you got the screen in the chambers of the screen holders, that's about the worst thing you could do is not get it in there or something, have something get banged up in there, but having your wire for your flash in the way of the machine or something, but they're all stupid mistakes.
Right.
Pay attention to what you're doing and take your time and look it over.
Yeah, going slower is actually going faster in most cases, right? Like being a little more methodical is actually faster.
Sure. People go, I want to print on head 3. Okay, so set up like a revolver or a cycle program, let it flash, cool down all the way around your press, don't flash, and then print 3. Well, that's going to take more time. Okay, but it's going to take less time than stopping every 10 minutes to clean all that cruddy ink out of there and keep it from sticking and stuff like that. Like, take 2 minutes in the print as opposed to 10 minutes later.
Doesn't the Volt, too, have some really interesting, like, step back and index features that are very... I mean, I know when you guys first came out with it, it was kind of cutting edge, too, right, at the time.
Sure, yeah, we've got right now, any press with a servo motor can do the step back, the revolver, the cycle, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
We're always adding little things to it, and that's where the Wi-Fi comes in handy when we do the updates at some point. We're actually even working on other machines that can do other things at some point that might be able to speed things up. I mean, our R&D program has 40 or 50 items in it right now.
That's what's up, man. So
not even in the States yet, still just in our European facilities.
So for the future of this company, again, from a fanboy's point of view, you guys see the tech. You're going to continue to create and develop new products as well. It's not just going to be your carousel printers and shit like that, right? A lot more stuff.
Well, I'm working with other people and working within our facility and different things like that. We're working all over the world.
Cool.
With different manufacturers, trying to see where things might go, what we can do, different relationships we can grow, things like that.
And this next question is kind of in regards to the first question, why business is so tough, why one shop makes it, why one shop doesn't. But again, you've dealt with a lot of business people. Some of them are probably more marketing specific. Some of them are more like
correct. Being able to work with your clientele and
Yeah.
helping them. I mean, ideally, like me, I'd like to see my clients grow. I'd like to see these shops get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
So whatever we can do to help that, we don't want you to be down. We don't want you to be broken. We want to fix it as fast as we can on our end. So, I mean, helping your customers, listening to them about what do you need, when do you need it, how can we help, things like that. People just get dived in, especially in screen printing, because a lot of artists and stuff like that, they're not really focused on the people. So maybe you just need that buffer between the printer
right.
and the business person to be able to work everything out.
Right.
But having that buffer sometimes can help the frustration between that artist and that person needing it now kind of thing.
Right. Does that make or break a lot of shops?
Explaining it.
No, that makes perfect sense. Does that make or break a lot of shops, you think, is when they can't like a lot of the times the artist guy he's the one that starts the shop, right? But he may be so mentally focused on that he's not the best with dealing with client sort of
sometimes
issues.
Or you jump so far in that you don't calculate how much anything's going to cost. You don't figure out how much your time is worth, how much inks you're using, or anything like that.
Yeah. Sometimes
you're just saying, I'll beat the other guy.
And that can be detrimental, dude. That can take a business down.
Yeah, and I learned the hard way doing a lot of different challenging things. Like, almost anything can be done. It's about how much time is it going to take me to do it or figure it out.
Yeah, and how much and the cost of it, too. A lot of the
I learned that one the hard way, because when we had a lot of salespeople, what would happen is they would promise stuff without even talking to me.
Right.
So, like, well, do you know how to print a winter coat or a raincoat or an umbrella or a cooler? Like,
yeah.
I haven't done it. Let me make some phone calls and see what kind of inks we need, supplies we need.
Yeah.
So it can become challenging. I mean, it can take a day or two of testing different inks and materials to get what you need right.
That's right. Yeah, and that's just there's no more money there. Yeah, I feel like the shops that make it have figured out a way to either push that stuff off, or they just don't deal with it, or they it comes down to that niche selection, right, and picking
Or
certain
how much is
things.
my time worth to do it? At least to price your time appropriately. So
Right.
if you're going to spend 2 days R&Ding it, charge them for 2 days to R&D it.
Right. Yeah. That seems to be a big thing, man. I think in the early days I did shit like that, and now I'm kind of more specific with what I'm going to do, even as a small shop, and it changes the way that things work, dude.
I mean, a raincoat should not be priced the same as a T-shirt.
Right. Or an umbrella or a cooler either, yeah.
Yeah, a styrofoam cooler definitely burns a lot easier.
Right. What do you do as a tech? Okay, because I'm sure this question applies to you more than anybody. So as a technician, I ask this question to everybody. It's just interesting to hear how you do it. You're stuck. You have a problem. You're dealing with something, and you're not sure what to do next. What? It's not so much about how your answer, but how do you go about finding your answer? What are some common things you do to get there?
All right. Well, we work on this internally a bit too, because even with us, we deal with customers. Sometimes you can't figure it out. Sometimes maybe you don't know, but somebody else might know. When I used to print, I used to have my guys try to set up the job. If they couldn't do it in X amount of time, let somebody else try. It's not worth getting frustrated, because once you start making mistakes, it just gets worse and worse and snowballing. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just walk away for 5 minutes and come back and start with a fresh brain.
Right.
I remember doing so many things where I make the first mistake and I didn't walk away, and all of a sudden I've got 5 mistakes instead. Like, if I had just stopped thinking about it, like, I wouldn't have had 5 mistakes.
All right. That's good advice, dude. Yeah. Yeah, you do, right? Like, you start diving into it, and then your brain just becomes mush, and you can't really dig yourself out. So taking a break, is that typically what you do if you're just stuck somewhere?
That's my approach, yeah.
Even with technical stuff?
Even with technical stuff. Go step outside for a minute. Get some fresh air. Think about it.
Yeah.
Think about things that you've done similar, where the next steps would be before you go and try to do it.
What about with customer stuff? Same approach? You know, like, so you're dealing with a complex client. He's badgering you. You're a piece of shit to him, and he can't. But you need to handle it as a professional. Can you use that same approach to deal with those kind of?
I mean, ideally, you got to explain that I'm trying to do my best, and this is what I can do for now, and I'm trying to get you the best answer as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I can't make everyone happy. That's probably one of my flaws. I really try. But I mean, like I said, I can't ship parts on a weekend. If somebody's going to be upset about that, I really can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
I can get you through. There's certain things even, I've seen this happen 100 times. It's this, and then all of a sudden that one thing doesn't work.
Yeah.
I call the engineers, and they're like, oh, well, that's impossible. Well, evidently it's not impossible, because I'm staring at, I'm going to need to call my engineers. It's like, all right, so now I need to explain that we're going to talk tomorrow morning.
Gotcha.
Unfortunately, that's how it works occasionally, but as long as we're on top of it, I try to keep everybody in the loop. Communication's key in any business.
Yeah.
If you don't have people that can communicate, nothing's going to get done.
Yeah, communication is very important. And you feel like that is probably, from a customer point of view, dealing with customers, that's the trick, is having a nice communication platform in place.
Sure, yeah, being able to talk to them, being able to feel comfortable. I mean, certain customers, even I get to the point where if I don't feel comfortable giving them the answer, I can't answer that right now. Like, we can talk about that in the future, but right now I can't give you that answer, and I'm trying my best.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of new printers do that just with projects that they're not ready for and stuff. They just kind of like dive in because they're afraid to say that they don't have the answer for that. But possibly the better approach is to say, well, let me
step back and look at everything. Think on a little bit. Sometimes those genius ideas come to you in the middle of the night. I can't tell you how many times where I'm like, I have no idea what I'm going to do, and all of a sudden just bam, there it is.
Right.
Even printing, like that, go home and take a night's sleep, and all of a sudden, wait, I haven't tried this ink or that method.
Right. And you have a lot of experience with printing too, huh? It's interesting as a press tech. It's like, hey, he's probably not so much of a printer, but you have a lot of experience with it.
Oh yeah, I mean, when we did the second shop, it was all contract work, so we were trying to get it out as fast as possible.
Mm-hmm.
We did a lot of the railroads. I mean, stuff would come in pallets and be out the next day in the same pallet.
Damn.
They'd send them back and forth. We'd have shifts running all night sometimes. And they wouldn't want one location. They'd be like, I want a front and a back, both sleeves. thankfully they picked easy colors like
Right.
safety yellow and black.
Right. What is it? You know, I've often wondered that. Where do the shops that are putting out that kind of like, and you were there as you saw it transition, right, from smaller to bigger, and these things started coming
We
through.
started taking more and more over. He already had a lot of the contacts from the embroidery. It was just a matter of taking them on,
But how does
offering a new product line.
And then you guys, as the shop guys, then you're diving into R&D for that particular project. So a lot of the times he'll take on a job that you're not ready for, and you do it, and you ultimately commit a bunch of R&D to try to document it and figure out how to do it better next time.
Correct. And I can't tell you how many jobs we took on, and I called people and said, how do I do this? Oh, you can't. Oh, now you've really got me going. It may take me longer, but I'll figure it out now.
There you go.
I
That's the
had
right
them tell me
mentality.
I printed covers for the planes on the military ships for the Navy. I was like, I can't vinyl sticker this? Oh, no, it's got to be screen printed for us. And it's all got to be individual serialized. And when we need it, we just happen to have a power outage.
Oh,
So I printed them all in the dark with a spotlight.
oh my God.
They literally told me I couldn't do it. I had to find special ink to go on the fireproof material. I had to get special cleaners for all these inks, special emulsions for all this stuff. And then when we get down to it, it's really not terrible. Doing it in the dark definitely didn't help.
Yeah. But figuring it out was the tough part. It's not so much
Figuring
doing
it all out, but I mean, it came down to like, okay, I need a pallet built this size. Oh no, you can't fit that pallet on that press.
Right.
Again, don't tell me I can or cannot.
Yeah.
So I literally built my own pallet and sent it to the sales rep and said, so here's that pallet that I was going to buy. I guess I don't need it anymore.
Nice. That's what's up. Yeah, it's interesting when you see like I'm experiencing something similar right now where an opportunity or a gig comes up and it's like you can say yes to it, but there's going to be like a pain threshold, right? And once you break through it, you're going to be able to deal with it from this point moving forward. But are you willing to do the 24-hour days to break through that threshold, right?
Yep.
And every business.
I remember sleeping on the floor a few times.
Right. And the contract shops, that's ultimately what they've done over and over and over again, right? Is they break through those barriers.
Sure. A lot of times the contract shops, what I would do is I would make sure like all the hard stuff got done when I was there. And then the shifts when I didn't want to be there, I'd stay for setup. I'd get in early, stay for go get some dinner, come back, set them up for the night, and then go to sleep. Come back, set them all up over again, and make the schedules.
But tackle they're the hard shit first. Get the hard
I had
stuff out of the
lists.
way.
I had whiteboards, and I did have to abbreviate some of my jobs because I had different people coming in my shop, stuff like that, doing contract work.
Yeah.
Got tons of people coming in, picking up, dropping off. So I had abbreviations for certain things, but I had a big whiteboard, and it had a list of each press on it, and it had a list. They would start at the top of the list and work their way through. You got to the bottom, start at the bottom of somebody else's list. If we can get started on tomorrow's stuff, why not? Or just at least get stuff done today.
So you would have, this is interesting, because I'm developing software. So you would have production columns for each press.
Correct.
So this press has this many jobs assigned to it. This press has this many jobs assigned to it.
Correct.
And in the contract world, you need that kind of filter. You need to know what press is dealing with what stuff.
It definitely helps out because then you can arrange things like all my 2-color jobs should be on that 5-6. All those 4 or 5-color jobs should definitely be on that 12-11 instead of the 5-6.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to just take this note here real quick. Hang on real quick. So you need press columns. You need to be able to assign so you guys would ultimately assign jobs to individual presses.
Sure.
Cool. Assignment. Okay. We got that shit going, man. I feel like there's so much to ask with automate. Did we miss anything that you feel like would maybe help someone that's considering automating for the first time, any of that kind of stuff? Did we miss any key info that maybe we should put out there?
I mean, if you're getting in that first one, the foot pedals definitely help out. They're definitely not going to be what you want to maintain on because they're definitely going to slow you down a bit.
Okay.
But if you're a shop owner merging in and trying to do multiple things at once, or if you're trying to get the pace and go at your own speed, those foot pedals definitely help out.
Okay.
They're great as that initial purchase, first auto, stuff like that. Generally speaking, those experienced people either don't purchase them or you see them taken off and putting on the shelf.
Right. But they are nice to have when you're first learning the gig.
Correct.
That's a nice tip, dude. So, you guys heard it here.
Doing multiple flashes, I recommend a stand.
What now?
You're doing multiple flashes,
Uh-huh.
I recommend that stand so it's nice and easy to move the flash head to head. Otherwise, typically I do it as one person moving it from head to head, but I typically don't recommend most people doing that.
Okay.
As those bulbs are rather fragile and expensive.
Yeah. All right. That makes perfect sense. Oh, yeah. It's especially because of Anatol. Like, your guys' flashes can go into the print heads, right? So you can slide it in there. Right. I got you. That makes sense.
I mean, some people even take them out and put them in the corner. If it's on a nice stand, it stores nicely. You
Beautiful.
Just throw it over in the corner and leave it there.
Okay. Anything else from Automatic? That's pretty good. We got it. And if you guys have any questions about any of this stuff, right, you can always call Anatol. They'll talk you through any of the more specific things that you might have.
Get yourself some pallet tape.
Pallet tape, baby. Hell yeah. You seen the new shit someone sent me some. It's pre-adhesive. I haven't tried it yet.
Oh, double stick, yeah.
Yeah, I wonder how long it holds up until I wonder if you can.
You gotta figure out what chemical works good to clean it, and it'll be a lot like that water-based.
Yeah, like water-based is awesome though, because you can wipe the lint off and keep it going.
Correct. I've seen people do the same thing with the double stick. You just have to figure out what chemical works best. I've seen some that work good with water, just like the water-based.
Yeah.
I've got another guy who was getting it from someone else, and brake cleaner was working for him with acetone.
Jesus Christ.
Works great for taking plastic out of your shirt, too. You get a little smudge or something, brake cleaner takes it right out as long as it's not cured.
Yeah, and then there's a fucking oil stain there, though.
Nah, it's just acetone in a can.
Oh, is that all brake cleaner? Oh, you're talking brake cleaner. I don't know why I'm thinking brake fluid, like an idiot. Yeah, put some brake fluid on that shirt, dude. I wanted to ask, too, like, what is the single most important skill? I ask everybody this one, too, that you feel like a new business person should have. And you're speaking more as an outsider that's seen people try to do it a bunch of times.
I mean, the ability to work with people. You're not always going to be right. And even if you are, is it really worth getting into it? The ability to work with people, negotiate, things like that. Maybe I can't get that job done, but if you're a good negotiator, you can negotiate yourself out of it. Or maybe you can figure out who needs it rather than the other. I mean, I used to run into some of the contract shops would call, I need this tomorrow. And it's like, well, I can do this much by tomorrow, but maybe not all of it. And you start negotiating where you can leave it at so that this guy's happy and this guy's happy and not just this guy.
All right. That's perfect, man. That's a great advice. Do you have any predictions for the print industry moving forward?
I mean, it's definitely interesting where it's going. Some of these direct-to-garment, stuff like that. I mean, the quality, in my opinion, is really not there. Or the ones that really do have some of the better quality, you have to pre-treat and spend the extra time doing that. So I don't really know if we're moving that direction at all. We've definitely looked into the DTGs. We have the ability of putting DTGs on presses just like everyone else.
Yeah.
But I'm just really not feeling that that's where my market wants to go. I'm more into the artwork, less of the digital. I'd rather focus, if we're going to do digital stuff, maybe more on like direct-to-screen, coding, stuff like that, more screen printing focused stuff.
Do you see that part of the industry with screen technology just advancing rapidly? It's going to continue to advance and get more cost effective, maybe?
I feel the market's going towards consistency. So while we have an art form, how consistent can we make it?
Right.
So little things like that help give you that consistency. If I can always coat the screen the same way, it's always going to burn the same way.
Yeah.
If I can always lay the same amount of ink down and the right layers, it's always in the same place. It makes registration on my press easier.
Yeah.
The faster I can do all these things, the more shirts I can put out, the more money I'm officially making. It's really, to me, it's like printing money. It's the closest thing you can get to printing money without getting arrested.
It's true, man. When you really look at it, it's cool the way it works. So at the end of this, we're gonna do the little Q&A thing, you guys. So make sure you're submitting your questions if you have anything for them. I feel like we kind of tackled a lot of them as I was running through this. But if you have any questions, hit them up. And then also, if you have any print myth busts, do the hashtag thing on that. And then after that, we'll let you just plug whatever Anatol stuff you want to plug and shit like that. Cause yeah, dude, we've been talking for a long time.
I don't even need to plug. It plugs itself.
Bro, the time goes so fast, man.
Sure.
So let's get into this print myth bust thing. Let's see if we had anybody come up with anything. Hashtag print myth bust. Nope, that's not one. Okay, here we go. Tim McElhenney, print myth bust. High tension Newman roller frames produce higher quality prints than static aluminum frames? Question mark.
Tension, yes. Can they produce higher quality print? Sure. Um, there's things to look at. I'm not a huge fan of the rounded corners. Obviously, they make devices around that to help with that. It's not really anything to do with our machine. It's just something to do with the rollers kind of thing. So that should be general kind of everything.
Yeah.
I do know some of the back clamps definitely help because it's flat on the one side on some of them. So you can do that. Ideally, looking at it, when I did it, I used to have the Hicks retentionable ones, which were square, so I could get the same features of the retentioning out of it.
Yeah.
But when it came down to it, it was about my time. Like, do I really want to spend time stretching screens when I could send them off to get done?
Right.
When I could spend my time better off on press, stuff like that. Tension does make a difference, though. So when I did get mine done, I had a good relationship with my screen manufacturers. So when I did it, I requested certain tensions.
Yeah.
You have to calculate, too, that the more you print on it, the lower it's going to get. So ideally, after that first job, it's going to drop a good 4 or 5 newtons easily.
Yeah.
So ideally, whatever you want it to be at, shoot for a little bit above that, just like when you're buying your press.
Okay. All right, yeah. So but it just really does come down just to the tension. It's not so much whether it's the roller frame is the best option. If you can get someone that stretches screens to give you higher tension stretches, you're going to ultimately
have more
achieve.
consistent ink lay down. Yeah.
Right. You're going to achieve
You'll
the
get
same
better
result.
registration.
Yeah, I see a lot of shops that use the rollers and they're awesome, but they are a very cumbersome thing to deal with.
They're expensive right off the bat to get into, same as some of those other retentionable screens and stuff like that. It really just comes down to preference. I mean, people are really hardcore, prefer them, and you really can't talk them in or out of it.
Yeah.
And then you got the other person on the other side who you can't do the same thing. And then you've got those people like this guy asking questions just because he doesn't know. Really, the only way to know is to experience it. Is it worth it for you?
Yeah.
How much do you want to print? Ideally, do you have the labor? Do you have the time to make those screens? Because it does take quite a while. And I find screen stretching is a whole different experience. We make stretchers. I don't have a ton of experience in it, but I've done a lot of research. I have done a little bit of it. But ideally, the tension also goes down after a while. So if you're going to tension a screen, you want to tension it and leave it sit for a while and then come back and re-tension it.
Yeah, that's what I know most high-end shops.
So when you're using the stretchers and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I feel like you've probably seen shops on both sides, right? You see shops that do great work with static frames, and you probably see shops that are utilizing Newmans to the highest capacity of.
Oh, I've seen people put special meshes in the Newmans, adapt the Newmans. They can let you do some more stuff. They are cheaper than even some of the other retentionable frames out there, like the Diamond Chase, stuff like that.
Yeah, those are sweet, though.
But it really comes down to, do you need it? Do you have the time for it? What are you trying to do? If you're doing a lot of process printing and a lot of good registration, you're going to need some nice tension screens.
Right.
If you're really doing those 1-2 color jobs, people aren't going to notice.
No, they won't. Yeah,
you'll
really
get better
depends.
pull when you leave the squeegee behind, stuff like that.
Yeah.
You might lay down less ink because you're getting a better peel, things of that nature.
I'm going to dive into it. I'm literally in talks with them right now. I'm going to try to do a whole series on it because I want to actually do some experimentation to figure it out.
I find, too, like, stretch them, let them sit overnight, check them again the next day, stretch them again if you need to before you start putting emulsion on them and using it, because it's really that long-term, where is it going to sit kind of thing. So you really need that time. I mean, stretch them a whole bunch in one day, come back through, stretch them again the next day. So you're talking 2 days to get a really good screen.
I love it. Well, great answer. This is from Waldo2413. Print myth bust. Hashtag print myth bust. Let's get it correct here. Okay, here's an interesting. Now they're gonna you gotta stick up for Anatol a little bit here, of course. Why does Anatol push new instead of fixing? We got one and call for tech, and they said, "Oh, here we go." I don't know why I expected this. Said, "Why not buy a new one? We found outside techs and had it running for less than $1,000." Well, obviously I can answer that too. That's going to be a salesperson trying to get a commission, right? But
that could be part of it, yeah. I'm not sure who they were talking to. I mean, we'll always fix it. It really comes down to Are you willing to pay for the labor? Are you willing to pay for the parts? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
It really comes down to like how old is the press? I mean, people don't service presses after a certain point. We try to do as best as we can.
Yeah.
Our service department offers free video chatting, free phone support for everyone, for every machine we've ever made.
Yeah.
So we try to do the best we can just with that. People do get frustrated sometimes because they don't have that mechanical background, that electrical background. So when you're explaining stuff or trying to help them, it doesn't always communicate the best. Ideally, if you're one of those people, it could be best to get us out there, but it gets pricey.
Yeah.
We can give you lists of people, but again, you're getting back into the old days. Like, do you really want to go that route?
And like you said
I
earlier,
can't guarantee he's going to take care of it any longer than
Yeah.
you could take care of it. If you really want it fixed, we could have somebody come out there, but at what price point is it worth it?
Right.
How old is the machine? Can you put it into something that's going to last you longer with less downtime, stuff like that?
Right, I gotcha. And also, Waldo, I shouldn't have even read it because that's not a goddamn print myth bust, dude. That's like a customer service question. So why did I read that? And also, shout out to Jimmy Johnson for the $2 super chat, dude. You are the man. Waldo, absolutely not using print myth bust for its original purpose. I should have read the question before I read it out loud on live. Fuck off. Who else
And we
here?
talked about taking them back. We'll always do trade-ins, too.
There
It's
you
just
go.
maybe you're not going to get the value you expect out of the machine. Sometimes maybe you have to sell it
Right.
on your own to get what you think it's worth.
Right, I want to move past that because he kind of fucking duped me. So I'm actually what a butthole. Let's see what else we got. Any print myth bust here? So this is a question. So this is part of the Q&A from Liberty Graphics at The Print Life. This is actually more of a shout out to me. You don't need chemicals to clean dual tack pallet tape, and it will last up to 500 prints. Very cool. This is again. This is more of a question. He's interested in knowing the price of the Volt. Call them up; they'll hit you up because I know
I don't do
firsthand,
pricing.
and it varies wildly depending on what model you get.
Sure.
Let's see here. And that's pretty much it, dude. I knew that this was going to happen when we bring on a press manufacturer. I knew someone was going to ask goddamn price because they always want to know the goddamn price. And I knew someone was going to come in here with some customer service bullshit, dude. How much is the initial investment for the Newman roller things? They're expensive, dude. Like they have, I've seen they have like packets, right, where you can get like 10 or 12 of them but it's like thousands of dollars. I know that to get set up.
I find them used every once in a while for like $25 as an average going rate.
That's not bad to get them used.
Here and there, yeah.
I bet you they're
Search
all
around,
beat to
Digit
shit.
Smith, stuff like. Because a lot of the people who get them, like if they don't like them, they're just getting rid of them. It's like I said, it's either I love it or I hate it kind of thing.
Right.
So they're out there.
Right. Yeah, I think you'd want to look into them too. You want to make sure they're not punctured or anything. Because, dude, can you imagine if you had a leaky one and you like dip tanked it? Interestingly
Want
enough,
to make sure it's got all the little pieces for inside of it to hold the mesh in, all the little clips and stuff like that.
yeah.
The wrench.
Interestingly enough, I was talking to the gentleman, not, God damn it, from Chromaline, not Marty, the other guy. Where's my goddamn card here? But
I ran into them at the show and walked up looking at their high density stuff like, what is this? Who is this? And I look up their sign and go, oh, it's Chromaline. I know you.
This was John Behar, and we were just talking about general screen printing stuff. And I've asked a few people about this. I got sold on dip tanks early on because I remember at the time, like, this and getting fucking tired. I hated it.
Started.
Yeah, but now, I'm talking to some of these other industry professionals. And they're giving me all these little tidbits of insight into the downfalls of like dip tanks and stuff like that, how it dilutes it by water. I'm just interested to know, and maybe this is something you guys can look into. Let me know. Hit me in the comments about what your experience has been with this. But it's actually more efficient if you spray emulsion remover directly on the mesh before wetting it, and that you may find that your chemical cost actually goes down.
Depends on how you're using it.
Yeah. It was interesting, though, because I was like, no, dip tanks for life. Dip tanks for life. And then someone comes in and they just kind of slam that down. I've got to test it out and figure it out.
Well, I got through a lot. I did a lot of testing with this back when I used to print. We got to the point where we didn't even know whether we wanted a dip tank or not. We didn't know whether the myths were true, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we actually went ahead and built our own. to start with. The keys you're looking for typically with dip tanks is size. The smaller size, the less chemical you're going to use. So you really only need 1 or 2 screens at a time in there.
Yeah.
Ideally, that also limits you to the screen shouldn't be in there long enough that the emulsion's falling off inside of it.
Right.
That chemical only accepts so much emulsion. If you leave it at the bottom of your tank, it's just eating up your chemical.
Oh, yeah.
So ideally, you just want it in there for a very short period of time. You still want to scrub it. It just should be a much easier scrub than what it initially should have been with spraying it. That's going to give you the longest life out of that chemical.
Yeah, that's the way I feel. But it's like it's interesting to
Another interesting thing is people don't think about because it's hollow aluminum, a lot of the frames.
Yeah.
So they tend to float. So people tend to put stuff on top of them to hold them down, but they don't think about what they're putting on top of it.
Like
so you got to look at that as well. Yeah. So I've seen people take iron weights, steel weights, stuff like that, and emulsion doesn't react. Emulsion remover and emulsion don't react well to iron and steel. That's why frames are made of aluminum. It actually degrades the chemicals and causes them to lock up.
Does it? I didn't know that. Interesting. Very, very cool. That's it. All right, guys. Any other questions for us? We've been going for forever. Anybody have any? Ooh, interesting. Have you seen this? Have you seen anyone running solar on the Volt?
Not solar, but I've seen generators.
You have seen
I got a guy in Florida who had me set it up so he's on a switch. So if he gets a hurricane, power outages, stuff like that, he flips a switch and switches over to the generators.
Interesting. I mean, I'm assuming it has to be a huge generator, dude. The amperage on that Volt must be ridiculous.
Nah, it's really not that bad.
Really?
It's less than your compressor.
Is it really?
I mean, I'm setting up a single phase 7-color right now. You're talking like 20 amps.
Huh.
The flash uses more.
Yeah, the flash.
So he's got his own. He's got a separate generator for the press and a separate one for the flash. And then what he does is he'll switch the flash over to his dryer, and what he'll do is just flash dry everything, stack it, and then run it through the dryer separately.
That's pretty good though, man. Yeah, but with any press though, the flash and the heat, that's their own electrical thing, right? That's always just going to be its own thing.
Yeah, some presses, different people have it run through all one circuit, but we find it to be easier to have them on a separate circuit. So that way we can turn certain things on or off, and you're not getting such a big draw out of one breaker or one specific wire type deal.
Right, that makes sense. Yeah, Eddie San Juan's also kind of doubling down on what I was saying. He said the same thing for dip tanks and backlighting for your washout booth. Maybe it was you who mentioned that a long time ago, Eddie. But yeah, it's interesting. I know that I'm going to have to revisit it and just test it out again. Because it does seem like with dip tanks, you're dumping a lot of chemicals in them goddamn dip tanks. You are. And even when you try to make people only leave them in there for 30 seconds or whatever, they still end up getting left in there for 2 minutes, and then your whole chemical went to shit. It doesn't really matter.
It happens.
Yeah, guys, I feel like we nailed it, man. One of the hashtag print. I'm triggered a little. I'm slightly triggered because he got me. Waldo, shame on you. I'm shaking my finger at you. But other than that, guys, thank you so much for your questions. Thank you so much for your hashtag Mythbusters. Not a lot of them today, which let's say like, hey guys, let's get on that, huh? But thank you so much, my dude Drew, for being here. I feel like you should still plug a little bit of stuff. Like obviously.
Well, if you guys need anything, my email is drew@anatol.com.
There you go. Go ahead and harass
My phone number is
him.
found on our website if you need it. Email me, call me. I mean, check us out at Anatol Equipment.
If they're interested in a press, should they talk to you first?
Ideally, no. I don't want to do anything with pricing.
You can't, right? You can't talk
I purposely
pricing.
leave myself out of pricing to make things a bit easier.
Okay.
I'll handle all the customer service. I'll give you all the information you need. I will not do pricing. Even for parts, I try to stay out of it.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff I can give you estimates, general ballparks, but don't quote me on any pricing.
Fair enough. And so definitely visit Anatol.com, right? That's a good resource.
Sure.
A lot of good stuff there.
Check out our social medias. We're trying to add videos here and there.
Do you have a personal Instagram?
I do. I don't use it a ton.
Not for business?
I'm trying to use YouTube a little bit more. Facebook I'm pretty active on.
And what's your YouTube channel?
True Konstantaras.
So it's okay, cool. So you guys check him out there. I'll link your channel in the description of this video.
Sure, and then we've got the Anatol YouTube as well. They're both different little things. I'm trying to take my channel maybe in a different direction at some point, depending on how much time I get.
Brand yourself, baby. You got to keep it going, man. You never know where you're gonna end
Thinking
up.
shop tours and stuff might be a better way to go.
Yeah, that'd be cool, man. I'm gonna do something similar on the yeah, I'll talk about that later. Yeah, man. Uh, and what about your Facebook? Is it just Drew
Yep,
Konstantaras? Okay. Yeah, guys. Do you have a Facebook group or anything? Does Anatol have a Facebook group?
we do. It's not very big right
Not
now.
very active. Well,
I
maybe.
also go on a lot of the other groups as well. But yeah, if you go to our Anatol Facebook, you can see the group that's there as well.
Yeah, guys. So if you're interested in Anatol, if you're a fanboy like me, go sign up, get involved. I'm sure they'll be happy to answer any of y'all's questions. Thank you, Drew, my friend. That was good. That was a good conversation. Hopefully, we answered some of your guys' questions in regards to getting new screen printing presses, and hopefully, just we helped you kind of make a decision. Other than that, thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, we go live every Wednesday, 3 p.m. Arizona time. That could be any different time depending on what side of the country you're on or side of the world you're on. But make sure to be here. The live viewers, man, it matters. It matters to the show. The more people we get live, the more that it gets promoted, and the more we get more live viewers every episode. So be here if you can. It means a lot. Also, when this video wraps, please go back to it, leave a comment, let us know that you were here, and punch the thumbs up button. Because I know it seems minuscule, but it matters a lot in the world of YouTube. So please do that for us. It would mean the world. Lets us know that you care. And just leave comments. Ask him questions about whatever you want. I'm sure Drew will pop in and answer those questions for you. Thank you so much for hanging with us, Print Fam. We'll see you next Wednesday, 3 p.m. Arizona time. Deuces. And are we?